This is Mr. Hannon. Welcome to What the Format. Today we're going to go over parallel and perpendicular lines. Now, remember when we were finding equation for lines, linear equations, or even a linear function, there were 5 ways to find the slope. I said there were actually 6. The 6th is calculus, so we'll cover that later. But 5 ways to find the slope. 1 is it's given to you. 2, you read it off a graph. 3, you have 2 points. Or then 4, you're parallel to a line. Parallel lines have the same slope because they have to go together, can't intersect. Parallel lines don't intersect. The only way not to intersect is to have the same slope. And then you have perpendicular, where notice this word reciprocal, opposite reciprocal. What's the reciprocal? Well, the reciprocal is when the numerator and denominator of a fraction change place, commonly known as a flip. But reciprocal is what you want to remember because that's what you're going to see and hear a lot. Even though it's a weird word, you need to memorize that. Same thing when you divide by a fraction. You multiply by the fraction's reciprocal. Keep, change, flip was the trick that they teach, but a lot of students don't realize it's going to come back. Here it is, reciprocal again. So make sure you memorize reciprocal. Numerator and denominator trade places. Now, there are 3 forms of a line. The easy 2 are these 2. You simply read the slope right off. So if you're parallel, for B, same slope. M is then going to be 3/4. Over here, opposite reciprocal, we're going to take the 3/4 and we're going to take the opposite of it. Okay, now very important to take the opposite. Okay, a plus goes to a minus would go to a plus. Notice the 3/4, notice how the numerator and denominator change places. Okay, so this is B, M equals, sorry, I should rewrite that. Number B, this is your slope, M equals. Then on number C, okay, your M is just 5/6. Again, it's just the same slope. You don't need to do anything with it. Just read it right off. Over here, for part C, it's going to be -6/5. Okay, now what happens if it's a integer, you ask? Well, if you have 3 as your slope, that's really 3/1. So then that would go to -1/3. Remember, any integer can be made a fraction by putting 1 under it. You're going to want to remember that. That's a format change, and it's very, very useful in many situations. Okay, I didn't do an example like that because I wanted to emphasize reciprocal, easy to see with a current fraction, harder to see with an integer, but you will have to do that. Then part A. Now here's the problem with A. We can't read the slope off of it because it's in standard form. So there's a little work to do. That usually means then that a lot of the times that you see parallel, perpendicular to a line, what format are they going to put it in? Here, because it requires a little bit of effort to find the slope. What do? Well, we have to put it into slope-intercept form, which means you solve for y. How do we do that? Well, the inverse of plus 3x is minus 3x. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Now I've got 2y equals -3x plus 6, divide by the 2. Now, in this case, you can stop there. You only need the slope, which is now -3/2. But for practice purposes, it doesn't hurt to keep going. So now you have that as y equals -3/2x plus 3. Okay, and then now that's in slope-intercept form, like up here, you just read the slope off, it's -3/2. So here, your M is -3/2. For parallel, for perpendicular, your M is going to be 2/3. So notice what happened here. -3/2 is the same, but notice this is the first time here we went positive, negative, positive, negative. Why? Because that was the opposite. Opposite of positive is negative. Well, down here we have a negative, so its opposite is positive, and then the 3/2 trade places to 2/3. Now, very, very important. This is how you just find the slope. We're not done yet. They would give us a point that we would go through, and then we would have to use that point either to put it in point-slope form and then go to slope-intercept form, or you put it in slope-intercept form and solve for B, which is what I did on my other videos. So now, at this point, the only difference finding linear equations with parallel and perpendicular is how you identify the slope. Everything else after that is the same as what we've already done. So to illustrate that, I'll just do one example. Okay, I'm going to do part A. We'll just say that we were parallel. I need some more room, so we're going to take it away. So we say we have the -3/2 slope and the 2/3 slope. Yes? So let's say our M is the -3/2 from part A, and we go through the point 2 comma negative 3. Well, you go right up there, you go y minus 3, which is really y plus 3, equals your slope m times x minus 2. So then we rewrite that as y plus 3 equals negative 3 halves times x minus 2. And now we have the parallel line that goes to the point 2, negative 3 in point slope form to this line. Now, what if they don't want it in point slope form? Well, now we have a little work to do. We're going to have to distribute here. So you're going to have y plus 3 equals, so now when you distribute, remember you're taking this times this and this times this. So whenever you have a number times a variable, you just write that number times a variable, even if it's a fraction. Now, please watch, minus times a minus is a plus. The 2's cancel here. So you're just going to get plus 3. And then we're going to go minus 3. Oh, that's an interesting development. Notice we had a y-intercept of 0 here. That can happen sometimes. It just depends on your numbers. Usually these won't cancel out, but here in this case they did. Now if we're over here, what do we have? Well, remember now our m is what? 2/3. So now we have y, we'll say it goes through the same point. Oftentimes they'll do that. They might change the point, but let's just not at this point. So there's your y plus 3, same as over here. And then now, but we have 2/3 times what? X minus 2, yes? So once again, we'll distribute. Y plus 3 equals 2/3 x. Now, we had a plus times a minus. That doesn't change sign this time. Be very careful not to just do that. Okay, so we're still going to distribute there. And notice that 2 times 2 is 4/3. Now please be careful here when you're doing the 2/3 times 2. If you can't see that this way, do it out the side. It's just the 2 times the 2. Okay, do not multiply that 3 times 2 in any way. I've seen students do that. That's just dangerous. If you did it out the side, it would look like this. We're going to have our 2/3 times 2 over 1. See, I changed the 2 as a fraction. So now I can see it's just 2 times 2 and 3 times 1. Hopefully you can control the problem, not get confused. Now we're going to subtract 3, but now of course you see the issue over here. The fraction went away, no problem, but it's not going to go away on both of them. So now we have y equals 2/3 x. Those are both minuses. Now remember, we got to change that to 9 over 3. Why 9 over 3? Well, 3 goes into 9 3 times. Now the 3, the denominators match. They're both negatives, so you're going to add to a negative. 4 plus 9 makes you 13 over 3, and those are my answers. Okay, and you could have left it like this or like that if it was in point slope form or slope intercept form. Now if we're going to go to standard form, we're going to have to then multiply by 3 and then subtract this over, make the x term positive. I believe I did another video on that, on how to go from slope intercept to standard form, so that would be the steps. You can go watch that video and then practice that with these two. Now this is going to be the kind of easy one. Just double everything. 2y equals negative 3x. Add the 3x over, so you get 3x plus 2y equals 0. And make sure you leave that 0 on that side. So interesting things, how math sometimes work out. The numbers are kind of interesting. But that's your process. Remember, it's all about your steps. And in this case, you should be good at getting into point slope form, slope intercept form, or standard form, as long as you get your slope and a point. This is just way 4 and way 5 of them identifying your slope. And you'll see that in a lot of standardized tests these days. They'll push these quite a bit. Anyway, hopefully this helped. This is how you find linear equations when you're parallel or perpendicular to a given linear equation. This has been Mr. Hanna. Thank you for watching What the Format.